I am so excited to get to talk with Pierre-Alexandre, CEO of Hexoskin, as he and his company are really playing in some innovative areas of healthcare and really looking at the beyond the pill ideas. So Pierre-Alexandre, thank you so much for joining us and would love to have a little chat with you.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And before I jump in though, is there anything you'd like to share beyond the fact that you are CEO of your organization?
I would like to share that we're working with hundreds of organizations who are doing health research with digital health tools, and Hexoskin has an open API. So if you want to look at it, go on our website in the developer section.
Wonderful. So to kick off the conversation, I want to ask you kind of a big question around how do you envision the convergence of smart clothing, software, and AI data analytics, how those things are going to transform the future of health technology and healthcare overall?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're lucky today because we have technologies that allow us to do three things. We can passively record health data from patients, and it's very important that this is passive because we want to put the least burden possible on the patient. And we have technology that can take this data from the patient environment to another location, so that it's accessible for caregivers, providers, and patients alike. And then we have technologies that can look at this data and summarize it to find the important things, the important numbers that you can act on it. And these three things together, I think they're revolutionary, because suddenly we can see things that we couldn't see before. And that's helpful for pharma companies to better understand what their products are doing. It's useful for providers because they can provide better services to their patients. They can care for patients that they wouldn't be able to care because they are not mobile or they live far away. And they're very useful for patients and their families as well, because they have access to new types of data. It used to be that you had a scale at home, maybe a thermometer, and that was pretty much it. Now you have all these tools that you can use to manage your own health. And more groups of patients have access to these tools for their specific health conditions. And I think it's revolutionary.
I agree. And I love at the core, it's really about being very patient, very customer centric in your approach. And that idea of passive data collection. You're not making somebody do something more than they're already doing. I think that's brilliant, and a really great way to bring healthcare and health insights into the equation. So, can you describe some of the most innovative features of your smart clothing products and how you're leveraging AI in the data analytics?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So we're doing a lot of things with our two lines of products. So the Hexoskin smart shirts and the Astroskin wearable sensor system. I think so. There's a lot of things that other products are doing. For example, monitoring heart arrhythmias, gait, things like that. I think two things that we're doing that are very unique is that the Astroskin sensor system that we have can continuously monitor systolic blood pressure. Meaning, instead of having a blood cuff that inflates and then you get one reading and then you cannot really get another reading within 5 or 15 minutes. You get a reading with our system at every heartbeat. Every heartbeat gives you an estimate of systolic blood pressure. And I think this is new. This is going to change the way we look at blood pressure management. Another thing that we do that is pretty unique is that every one of our products has thoracic and abdominal breathing sensors that are very, very precise to monitor breathing patterns. So this is not just a breathing rate monitor. We monitor breathing patterns. We can differentiate between laughing and coughing. We can monitor the symmetry of breathing. If you breathe from your chest or from your belly, if you take pauses when you breathe, things like that. And I believe that when you have a new instrument, it changes scientific theories. When you can look at something that you couldn't look at before, it can change the definition of a disease. it can change the way we define a standard of care, in this case for respiratory diseases.
And it's in a real world setting. It's not necessarily a
Yes.
clinical trial that's controlled, which is beautiful. And that's the evidence that everybody's looking for these days. So that's great. So with the data and the evidence that you're generating, how are your users and whether it's the person wearing the clothing or a healthcare provider, how are they using that data in their lives or in their practice?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question, and we provide tools to help with that, because the products we have, they're high resolution sensors. We can produce tens of millions of data points per day. Of course, we don't expect anybody to look at the whole data set. So we provide tools so that we can summarize that data for providers, for researchers, for patients. For example, we've developed AI tools to look at cardiac arrhythmias. We've developed AI tools to look at breathing patterns. So we can summarize what's happening with a patient in a given day or a given week, and identify trends and provide objective measures of significant health events. I think that's very important, because in the end, you can look at the wearable, you can look at the whole software stack, but what people are buying really is that end result, that summary report that makes you think, oh, well, this looks okay, or there's something we need to change here.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of just segueing into preventive healthcare. There's a huge opportunity for this type of technology to support that prevention and earlier intervention versus our traditional sick care model, which we know is very expensive, as well as personalized medicine and personalized care as well. Can you talk a little bit about the potential that we have with your types of offerings in those areas?
Yeah, sure. And I think it applies to us and to the whole industry, is that when we start monitoring patients and interacting with them in a way that we record the observations and we record the interventions, at first what you have is a system where you can use new informations to act. But over the long term, you accumulate data that allows you to automate some of the intervention, because you've learned about all the intervention that people have done based on your observations, and you've learned about the outcomes of their intervention based on these observations. So I think all our systems are going to become a lot smarter, and we'll be able to automate a lot more of the monitoring and the health assessments and the decisions we make, which is very important, because if you look at the healthcare system today, the bottleneck is human resources, definitely. If you want to increase access to care, you have to have more people working to provide care, or you have to develop systems that are more efficient at using these people. And I think if you can automate these cognitive tasks that can only be done by humans today, then you free up a lot of time for the most important part of the care and that relationship between the provider and the patient.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because that really is so critically important to support that relationship. There's this conversation is fascinating, and it's so exciting about when we think about the future of healthcare and the things that can change it and make it more accessible and more evidence driven in a real world way. I could ask you a million questions, but one more question, just and then we can close out. But obviously, partnerships are playing a huge role when we look at healthcare, and whether it's large organizations or working with smaller startups, or smaller startups working together in a coalition. Can you talk a little bit about partnerships in your area and how they're playing a role to help you advance your technology, and how you're expanding the use cases that you have?
It's a great question. So we've always believed in open innovation. I started my career working on building the internet, and that was kind of the philosophy, to have protocols that can talk together and be very open about everything that you develop. And the result of that is that we've built a very open platform. We're involved in over 100 research projects at the moment in different specialties. Most of these projects aim to validate the digital biomarkers we provide for specific applications and for specific patient population, and to define better standard of care for these patient population. This is not something we would be able to do by ourselves. This requires a lot of investment. This requires patient access. It requires a lot of people from different specialties, physicians and researchers and scientists from different specialties. So we really think this has to be a collaborative effort, and I mean, we're very proud to work with pharma companies, with research hospitals, with universities, and different groups, patient groups as well, to push the technology forward and to bring what is necessary, which is a culture change and the education and the communications we need to do about these technologies, because this is the real challenge. It's culture and education.
Well, congrats on all your success, the work you're doing. Your point, we cannot do it alone, especially in healthcare. It's just becoming more and more apparent. And the work that you're doing is amazing. It is groundbreaking, and it is really looking at the new horizons when we think about healthcare. Like, who used to think about clothing as healthcare, right? But it really is going to be a game changer. So congrats with all your success. And before we move along, any last comments you'd like to share before you head out?
Well, again, I'm reaching out to the community. We work with a lot of people. Go on our website, hexoskin.com. We have sections talking about the hundreds of papers that the scientific community has published using the Hexoskin platform. There's information about how you can use the platform as a developer to export data to a third-party software, for example, and many examples of use cases and details about the technology. So please visit our website on hexoskin.com.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure, and congratulations. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you.